Sister tried to destroy my career, so I built a new one and left her behind. Family dynamics can be complicated, but when betrayal comes from someone you trust the most, it's devastating. I'd always thought my sister and I were close. At least that's what I believed. We had our ups and downs like any siblings, but nothing that could tear us apart. But what she did to me wasn't something I could ever have predicted. It wasn't just a little rivalry or a petty squabble. No, it was an all-out attempt to destroy my career, my reputation, and my future. It started when I landed my dream job, a position I had worked for years to secure. I had always been the quieter one in the family, more focused on my career than trying to get attention. I was content being the steady, responsible one, while my sister was the outgoing, charismatic one who could charm her way into anything. I never resented her for it, not really. But when I got that job, I realized things were about to change. My family was proud of me, sure, but it was clear that my sister was the one who couldn't handle me stepping out of her shadow. At first, it was subtle. She'd make little comments here and there, like, "You always get the best opportunities," or, "I'm so glad you finally made it. Maybe now they'll stop giving me all the attention." I brushed it off at first, thinking she was just being dramatic. But then it started getting worse. She began undermining me, going behind my back to spread rumors about my work ethic, casting doubt on my abilities. It was like she was determined to sabotage everything I had worked so hard for, just to keep herself on top. One day, I came into the office to find a message from my boss that turned my world upside down. Apparently, someone had anonymously sent in a complaint about my performance. It wasn't just a vague complaint. It was a detailed attack on my character, questioning my competence, my leadership skills, and even my integrity. I was stunned. I couldn't think of anyone who would want to hurt me like this, except for one person. That's when it hit me. It was my sister. She was the only one who could have had access to the information in that complaint. She knew all about my job, my responsibilities, and what people thought of me. And suddenly, everything became clear. She wasn't just jealous of my career, she was trying to destroy it. I was furious, but I wasn't going to let her win. I wasn't going to let her take away the one thing I had worked my entire life to achieve. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. Instead of letting her tear me down, I would rise above it. I would build a career that would leave her in the dust, showing her that I didn't need anyone's approval, especially hers. And so, I began building a new future, one where she would no longer have any control over my life or my career. What she didn't realize was that by trying to destroy me, she was only pushing me towards something greater than I ever imagined. My sister and I were always compared to each other. It was never malicious, just the way things seemed to go in our family. She was always the extroverted one, the social butterfly who could talk her way into anything. I, on the other hand, was the quieter, more introverted one. I wasn't really into the spotlight. I preferred to work behind the scenes, focusing on my studies, my goals, and my future. But no matter how hard I worked, it was never enough. Olivia, my sister, always seemed to get the better deal. She was the one who excelled in social situations, who was constantly invited to the best parties, the one who was always noticed. Our parents doted on her, praised her achievements, and made it clear that she was the successful one in their eyes. It wasn't that they didn't love me, but there was this feeling that I could never quite live up to Olivia. She had a way of making everything she did look effortless, whether it was acing her classes or winning over people at family events. She was the one everyone wanted to be around, the one everyone looked up to. And for years, I was content being in the background. I didn't mind working hard without recognition, thinking that eventually I would get the credit I deserved. But things began to shift when I started my career. The years of hard work, late nights, and sleepless weekends paid off when I landed my dream job, something I'd been working towards since college. It felt like a breakthrough, something that would finally prove to my family that I wasn't just the quiet one in the corner. I was capable of achieving big things on my own. At first, I thought things were improving between Olivia and me. She seemed to congratulate me, though in her typical, slightly insincere way. "Wow, that's impressive," she said almost in passing. "You must have worked really hard." But there was an edge to her voice, something I couldn't quite place. It wasn't jealousy, at least that's what I told myself. But as time went on, I started to feel like something was off. Things became even more complicated when Olivia got a taste of success herself. She had always been more focused on social media and building an online brand, something I had never been interested in. But once I got my job, it felt like she kicked her plans into overdrive. She landed some brand deals, had her own following, and started getting invited to events that I could only dream of attending. At first, I was happy for her, thinking that it was all deserved. But the more I saw her social media blowing up, the more I felt this nagging feeling in my gut, that somehow she thought her success was more authentic than mine. I realized, though, that it wasn't just my career that was at stake. Olivia was trying to steal my thunder in every way she could. It wasn't enough that she was doing well on her own. She needed to make me feel small to boost her own sense of superiority. It started with the little things. At family gatherings, she would always bring up her recent achievements, casually glossing over anything I had done, making sure everyone knew she was winning at life. At first, I brushed it off. She had always been the show-off. But as time went on, I realized it was more than just casual conversation. It was a pattern, a constant, subtle undermining of everything I had worked so hard to build. It was during one of these family dinners that the real turning point came. We were talking about our careers, and Olivia, with her usual flair, made a comment that made me feel like I was invisible. I just feel so lucky to have so many opportunities. Not everyone gets handed a job like you did, she said, smiling sweetly at me. The words were meant to sound innocent, but I could hear the underlying message loud and clear. I hadn't earned my place. It was just handed to me. I was stunned. The nerve. I had worked my butt off for years, building my resume, networking, making connections, and proving myself. But she had always been able to rely on her charm, her looks, and the attention of others to get what she wanted. And yet here she was, belittling my achievements as if they meant nothing. It wasn't the first time Olivia had done this, but this time, it felt like a breaking point. I had put up with her passive-aggressive comments for years, thinking they were just part of being in a family. But now, it felt like she was actively trying to sabotage me. She was trying to take away my self-worth by constantly undermining everything I did, and I wasn't going to stand for it any longer. After that night, something inside me snapped. I realized that Olivia's success wasn't just about her growing her own brand. It was about her trying to destroy mine. She didn't want me to thrive. She wanted me to feel small, insignificant. She wanted to make sure that no matter how hard I worked, I would always be in her shadow. And I was done with it. I was going to show her, and everyone else, that I could build my own future without her, without anyone's help. I would rise above her jealousy, her pettiness, and her constant need for validation. And when I did, I would leave her behind in the dust. After that dinner, I knew I had to make a choice. I could either continue letting Olivia's passive-aggressive comments and underhanded jabs hold me back, or I could do something drastic to take control of my future. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I wasn't going to let her get away with trying to tear me down anymore. I had worked too hard, sacrificed too much to let hers or anyone's opinions define my worth. It was time to take action. The first thing I did was stop telling my family about my career updates. It was clear that anything I said would either be brushed off or turned into an opportunity for Olivia to steal the spotlight. The next time she'd bring up her success, I'd nod, smile, and keep my own plans to myself. Instead of sharing my achievements, I decided to focus all my energy on one thing: building a career that would make her jealous. Not for the wrong reasons, but because I was doing it on my own and doing it better than she ever could. I didn't have the luxury of simply walking into a new opportunity like Olivia had. She thrived on social connections and the world of influencers. It was all about who you knew and who you could charm. But me, I was determined to build something grounded in skill, integrity, and long-term value. I took a step back and started looking at the gaps in the industry I was working in. I didn't want to play it safe anymore, especially if it meant being in the same shadow I had been in for so long. I wanted to carve out my own space and make sure that when I succeeded, it was because I had outworked everyone, including her. I started by researching everything I could about growing a business within my field. It wasn't easy and it wasn't glamorous. I spent late nights reading industry reports, learning from successful entrepreneurs, and brainstorming ways to break into markets that were often overlooked. I took notes, made plans, and reached out to people in my field who were in positions I could only dream of. The more I learned, the more excited I became. This wasn't just about getting a new job or building a simple career. It was about creating something real, something that couldn't be taken away from me by anyone. Olivia had built her success on flashy social media accounts and influencer deals. It was all about the image, the brand. But I was going to build something that lasted beyond a perfect Instagram picture. I would build something that didn't depend on who liked me or how many followers I had. I was going to prove that I could be successful on my own terms, without needing the approval of anyone. The idea for my own business took shape slowly, but once it did, I knew I had something special. It would focus on niche services that could cater to clients no one else was reaching, but it was going to require capital, more than I had available. So I began to set aside every extra dollar I earned. I also made connections with small investors who shared my vision. Every decision I made, every dollar I spent, was intentional. I knew the road ahead was going to be tough, but it felt right. I was building my own future, one that Olivia couldn't take from me, no matter how hard she tried. Meanwhile, Olivia continued on her path, always talking about her next big project, her next social media campaign. She was constantly trying to stay relevant, constantly chasing the next trend, the next viral moment. I couldn't help but notice how hollow it all felt. She had built her success on the foundation of being liked. But what was that really worth in the long run? I didn't have the energy to compete in that shallow world, so I kept my focus on what I was building. And then, just when I thought everything was moving smoothly, I found out that Olivia had started to take an interest in my industry, my exact niche. It wasn't an immediate shock. I'd seen her dabble in everything from fashion to lifestyle to wellness, but now she was eyeing the very thing I'd been working on for months. I couldn't help but feel a mix of irritation and dread. She had the social influence, the platform, the resources to get started quickly. If she entered the space I was planning to dominate, I could lose everything before I even launched. But I wasn't about to let that happen. Olivia's pattern had always been to leap into new ventures, without much thought or dedication. She chased the next shiny thing, hoping it would work out, but I knew my market inside and out. I wasn't just jumping on a trend, I was positioning myself for long-term success. I was confident that my approach, based on hard work, research, and value, would far outweigh any superficial advantage she had. That's when I decided to make my move. I had built the foundation for my business, and it was time to put it to the test. I knew Olivia would notice my rise eventually, but I wasn't worried about that anymore. I wasn't competing with her. I was focusing on my own success. But then came the bombshell. Olivia, with all her connections, started reaching out to the people I had been networking with. She was trying to get the same investors I had, the same contacts. It was obvious what she was doing, trying to undermine me before I even launched. But I wasn't about to let her have the upper hand. I knew that once my business was off the ground, I could prove my worth. The fact that she was trying to steal my clients before I even started only made me more determined. I had already prepared my strategy for launching. I kept pushing forward, kept refining my plan, and made sure that when I finally revealed my business to the world, it would be polished and unstoppable. Olivia was playing catch-up, trying to figure out the game I was already mastering. The thought of her desperately scrambling to mimic my every move only fueled my determination. I wasn't going to let her steal my thunder. I was going to build something that left her behind, something she could never copy. The day had finally come. Everything I had worked for, everything I had sacrificed, was about to pay off. I was launching my business, my vision, my dream, and I had no intention of letting Olivia's manipulations stand in the way. She had tried to beat me to the punch by leveraging her connections and influence, but I knew my foundation was solid. I wasn't just building something that would blow up on social media for a few weeks and fade away. No, I was building something that would stand the test of time. Something real, something people could trust. The launch day arrived, and I was nervous, but I was also ready. I'd spent months perfecting every detail, making sure the business was set up for success. I had carefully curated my marketing strategy, focused on the value I was offering, and crafted an experience that felt personal and genuine. Everything was in place, and I had a solid support system behind me. People who believed in my product and the mission I was trying to create. I had already secured a few key clients before the official launch, thanks to my networking efforts and the trust I'd built. When the website went live, I watched as orders started rolling in. People were actually buying into what I had created. The first few hours felt like a blur as I saw my business grow before my eyes. I was living the dream, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction when I checked my social media feed and saw Olivia's frantic posts. She had launched a similar service just a week before mine. I had known she'd try to beat me to the punch, but seeing it unfold so obviously, her scrambling to copy my every move, made me feel a sense of power I'd never experienced. It was clear that my product was better. The quality was unmatched. My branding was authentic. My messaging true to what I believed in. Olivia was simply playing catch-up. But what made the whole situation even sweeter was when I got an email from one of the investors she had tried to poach. They had chosen to back me. "We believe in what you're building," the message said. "Your vision aligns with what we want to see grow. We'll be in touch to discuss the next steps." I smiled. It felt like everything was falling into place, but I wasn't done yet. Olivia had built her career by taking shortcuts, relying on her social media fame and her ability to charm others. She thought she could get ahead by copying me, by using her platform to pull ahead. But now it was clear. She couldn't replicate the authenticity and integrity I brought to the table. People wanted something real, something they could trust, and I had that. Later that day, I received a call from one of the key players Olivia had been working with. He was a marketing expert who had been helping her build her brand. He told me that Olivia had been trying to undermine my business by spreading false rumors. "I didn't want to get involved, but I thought you should know," he said. "She's been telling people that your product is inferior and that you're not who you say you are. She's trying to discredit you before you get too big." My blood boiled. Of course she was trying to sabotage me. She couldn't handle the fact that my business was succeeding, that people were responding to my work. She couldn't stand to see me rise. But instead of letting the anger take over, I saw it as the final confirmation I needed. She was scared. She was scared because she knew deep down that she couldn't beat me at my own game. She had tried to destroy my career, but now she was the one sinking. The final blow came when a client who had initially shown interest in Olivia's version of my business reached out to me directly. "We're going with you," they said. "Your values align more with what we need. We want to support someone who's in it for the long haul, not just the next trending thing." That was it. The final piece of the puzzle. Olivia had failed. She had tried everything, taking my ideas, using her connections, spreading lies, and still, I had come out on top. My business wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. I had built it on my terms with honesty, integrity, and hard work. She could no longer take that from me. I didn't need to gloat or rub it in her face. I didn't even need to confront her directly. The satisfaction came from the knowledge that I had done it. I had taken the reins of my own career, built something from scratch, and left her in the dust. She had underestimated me, and now she was the one left scrambling for recognition. It wasn't just about the business success. It was about the personal triumph. It was about proving to myself that I was capable of achieving anything, even when others tried to knock me down. And when Olivia realized she couldn't control my success, that was when she truly lost. In the weeks that followed, my business continued to grow. It was no longer just a dream or a side project. It was becoming a force to be reckoned with. The more clients I secured, the more I felt like I was finally in control of my own destiny. I no longer had to depend on anyone for validation or success. I had built something solid, something that was mine and mine alone. Meanwhile, Olivia's business, if you could even call it that, began to crumble. Her rushed launch and lack of a clear vision were catching up to her. Her followers, who had initially supported her, began to realize that her offerings lacked the quality and authenticity that people were truly looking for. She had always relied on superficial charm to get by, but now that charm wasn't enough. She couldn't keep up with the demands of a real business. I didn't take pleasure in seeing her struggle. Okay, maybe a little at first, But as I watched her fail to maintain her momentum, I realized something. This wasn't about making her pay for what she did to me. It was about me proving to myself that I didn't need her, that I could succeed on my own terms. I wasn't interested in her downfall anymore. I was focused on my own future. I received an unexpected call one day from one of the clients who had initially been interested in Olivia's version of the business. "We just wanted to check in," they said. "We've been following your progress and we're really impressed. We want to formally sign a long-term contract with you." I couldn't believe it. Not only had they left Olivia behind, but they were now fully backing me. It was a huge win, one that solidified my place in the industry. As I hung up the phone, I realized that I had achieved everything I had set out to do. I had built something real, something that had staying power. Olivia, on the other hand, was becoming more and more isolated. She tried to reach out to me a few times, but I didn't pick up. I didn't need to have that conversation. I had already moved on from her manipulation and sabotage. I didn't have time to dwell on the past anymore. My business, my future was all that mattered. Then, one day, she texted me. "I messed up. I see now how much I hurt you. I was jealous. I tried to destroy something I didn't understand. Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long time. The old me might have felt sympathy, might have responded with forgiveness, but the new me knew better. I didn't owe her an explanation. I didn't owe her anything. I didn't respond to the text. Instead, I focused on what I had built, what I had created from the ground up. I had earned my success, and that felt far more satisfying than any apology Olivia could offer. She had tried to tear me down, to use her influence to make me feel small. But in the end, it was me who had come out on top. I wasn't going to let her or anyone else take that away from me. Months later, I found out that Olivia had closed down her business. She wasn't getting the deals she'd hoped for, and her online presence had dwindled. She had to admit defeat, and I knew she realized deep down that her attempts to destroy my career had only pushed me to greater success. She had underestimated me, and now she was paying the price for it. As for me, I thrived. My business continued to grow, my reputation was solid, and I was finally in control of my own narrative. I no longer needed to prove anything to anyone, especially not to Olivia. When I look back now, I don't feel anger or resentment toward her anymore. I just feel gratitude. Without her attempts to sabotage me, I might never have had the drive to push myself as hard as I did. I built a life I'm proud of, and I did it without anyone's help. It's not about revenge. It's about building something that can't be taken away, something that's all mine. And that, in the end, is the sweetest victory of all.